Moving to Rania Mashat. Rania, I've known you for a number of years. You're now Minister of Tourism for Egypt, but you were Vice Governor of the Central Bank of Egypt. Also, you were at the IMF in the meantime. And I know how important always for you has been and how much thinking you've done around the role of women in society and the role of women in the economy. So if this has been a big thing for us here, that we had a specific session on that. We had a new report that one of our partners launched here looking at that opportunity. What does it mean for Egypt specifically? I'll be very interested. I know you're reforming the tourism sector, but overall, what does it mean for Egypt, the opportunity of even more inclusion of women in society and in the economy?
Thank you very much, Merrick. I'm also very glad that I'm a co-chair during this event with Alan and other colleagues. Before I talk about women, there's something that you said which is quite fascinating, this idea of forward-lookingness and legacy. And maybe one of the sectors which is very well known for the region, tourism. You have a lot of legacy, but at the same time, we want to reform, so we put the forward-lookingness with it. We try to employ the new norms of doing business, digitalization, women empowerment, green tourism, sustainability. So you try and weave in the future and what we see currently with a lot of the history that exists not just in Egypt, but in different regions. Just something on tourism, particularly today when we are discussing the rise in the concepts of nationalism and protectionism. One of the sectors that actually encourages everyone to know each other, be close to each other, connect with one another, spreading ideas of cooperation is tourism. People are able to travel from one place to the other, know different cultures, so it's one way to actually overcome a lot of the unfortunate rise in some of the rhetoric around protectionism and nationalism. What we are doing in Egypt, I've been a minister for 14 months, and I've been trying to change the narrative on the sector. So rather than just take it as some jobs here and there and so forth, no, I want everyone to realize that it is an important export. When you look at tourism globally, it represents 10% of global GDP. 1 in every 10 jobs comes from tourism. 1 in every 5 new jobs is in tourism. The SDGs, the 17 SDGs are in the heart of that sector, promoting prosperity, peace, conserving heritage sites, empowering gender equality. All of these issues come very much in the heart of the sector. In Egypt, we've launched the E-Trip. E-Trip is the Egypt Tourism Reform Program, and the idea is collectively to have people saying the same vision, acting upon it, whether it's the government, the parliament, the private sector, which represents 98% of tourism. And the overarching objective for us is that every household have at least one person working in the sector. So this is something that we are implementing. There's a lot of political will behind it. And when it comes to women, in the E-Trip, there's a whole section, a pillar of reform called Global International Trends. And in there, we have green tourism, women empowerment, and digitalization and innovation. And therefore, what's being discussed here in the forum with startups, the idea of how you bring this future into a sector that has a lot of history is key. For women and women in Egypt, we have the National Council for Women, and it's taking a more proactive role. On many of the statistics that are published by the WEF, we don't score very well. We're very mindful of that. And the government has been taking a top-bottom as well as a bottom-up approach. Currently, we are 8 female ministers in cabinets. I'm the first female minister of tourism, which is a very male-dominated sector. We have 15% of women in parliament, 44% of women in the public sector. However, our objectives are much more, and we want to increase that to 30% in cabinet, 30% in parliament. There is, for the first time, a national observatory to basically monitor the progress and look after those KPIs. There's, for the first time, a national strategy for women empowerment, which is done at a national level. making sure that women get into leadership courses. There's a mentoring program, leading by example. In tourism, in the pillar related to women, there's a minimum number of women that are required for courses to be filled in. There are workshops on harassment, making sure that the working place, whether in hotels or in companies, are also quite decent and conducive for participation. So there's a lot of effort that's taking place, and what is very encouraging is that globally the sector is doing well, mobilizing people within the country to actually see the importance of the sector, not just as a livelihood, but also as a national stamp. One thing I will conclude with, because it also comes with this idea of the old and the new, we have the Grand Egyptian Museum, the GEM. It's opening up at the end of 2020, and our branding is the GEM 2020. It's fascinating that you see a museum which includes 100,000 pieces, which is the only museum dedicated to one civilization. It will have the full collection of Tutankhamun, 5,000 pieces. Many of you might have seen artifacts in different museums, but this is the only museum where you can see the collection and take a selfie with the pyramids. It's on the plateau of the pyramids, and it's very contemporary from the outside. So again, the idea is you can have history, you can have legacy, but at the same time, you would be able to showcase it and use technology and use innovation and basically be able to discuss and implement a lot of what the forum stands for.
Are you optimistic about the course right now? What are the things we should watch out, particularly when it comes to the economy of Egypt in the years to come?
Egypt took very bold reforms in 2016, and really the champion of those reforms have been the Egyptian people, who put the country first and really withstood a lot of the fallout of these tough decisions. I think that the growth rate for Egypt has been higher than the regional averages, and we're doing pretty well. There are still a reform agenda which is very ambitious. Monetary policy, fiscal policy is underway. Structural reforms are what we are working on, whether it's in the civil service, whether it's on different sectors. Even when I took over tourism, trying to approach it from a structural aspect so that you have sustainability in everything you do. You don't want to be doing reforms that are very short-lived. You want them to have a longer impact, and to do that, it requires some heavy lifting. I'm a believer in policy frameworks, and policy frameworks need to be transparent and communicated, and that's something that I'm trying to do in the sector. Just in terms of something that comes out of what we've been discussing the past 2 days, in the region we have leaders and laggards when it comes to innovation technology, some of the themes that have been discussed. We have a very impressive group of young leaders who are taking policy positions in their countries. And I believe that there's a platform for us to come together through the WEF to basically see how different experiences in different countries can be copied elsewhere. There's a wealth of shared experience, there's a wealth of will and commitment, and I think we have a chance to capitalize on that and push it forward.
Thank you very much.